distribution. We're going to go back to our example of selling pies and take a look at some raw data. So here's some pies sold. Here's just our raw data. And one of the things I'm going to recommend is that you always sort your raw data before you work with it. It just makes it a lot easier to see what you're working with. So here's our data sorted. And you see it's much easier to see how many times we sold one pie, how many times we sold two pies, etc. Okay. Now what we did in the last video was actually built a basic frequency distribution, and so here's what it would look like. There were 3 times that we sold one pie, 4 times that we sold two, etc., etc. All we're going to do is take this frequency distribution and add to it to create a cumulative frequency distribution. So the first step is actually to add a third column where we multiply the first column, your data values, in this case pies sold, times the frequency. So 3 times 1 is 3, 4 times 2 is 8, etc. And if you add those up, you'll see it adds to the total number of pies sold. And this is something we're going to use to calculate the relative frequency. So the next step that we're going to do is we're just going to calculate the relative frequency. And here it is. How did we get that? Well, all you have to do to calculate the relative frequency for any given row here is let's take the first row for example. You would take the value in this third column, divide it by the total, and that would give you your relative frequency. So let's just take a look. So in this case, 3 divided by 21, it equals 14%, and there it is. For the next column, I would simply divide 8 by 21, that would give me 38%, 6 by 21, which would give me 29, etc. And that's really all you have to do to calculate relative frequency. You'll notice the percentages always add up to 1 or pretty close to it. Sometimes you'll have some rounding error. It'll be 99% or 101%. The next thing we need to do is just add a cumulative column for the relative frequency, and that's very simple. All we do is as we go and add these relative frequencies, we simply put them into the cumulative relative frequency column and add them up as we go. So the first column is 14%. We add the 38% to that and get 52%. We add the 29% to 52% and get 81%. And again, this all adds up to 1. And this just gives us another way of looking at the data. One way you might interpret this is to say 81% of the time we sell 3 or fewer pies, and that might be some useful data. And that's all there is to calculating and creating a relative frequency and a cumulative relative frequency table.